Hello, solutionaries. Welcome to the Awaken Spanda podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Arlyn Ruddy. Thank you for joining us and thank you for tuning in. If you are new to the podcast, Awaken Spanda is a platform that's dedicated to supporting those on their spiral to wholeness through sharing stories, wisdom, and knowledge that can be directly applicable for generating and creating more energetic freedom within the self. Here we make the unconscious conscious daily, so if you are down with that sort of thing, then you may want to stick around to see what we got in store. Good morning, everyone. It may not be morning when you're hearing this, but it's morning here, and it's significant because 3 years back on this very morning, September 15th, I heard an audible voice that spoke to me and basically said, you will never achieve what you came here to achieve like this. And now, if those were the exact words, don't quite remember, but that was the energy. And it just clicked. And I've been sober ever since, without one inkling or desire to want to do it again, which is totally different than other attempts I've had at of quitting drinking or getting sober. The whole idea behind it. Now, I'm not, everybody, I'm one of those that believes everybody's relationship to alcohol, drugs, things of that nature, it's all dependent, it's all different, it's all unique. Everybody's signature is different. Everybody's design is different. I'm going to talk today a little bit about my journey in sobriety and in, how I got here and why I feel like I want to encourage you if you're listening to this right now and you've been pondering, like, even if it's just taking a break, encouraging you to take that break. For me, it was gradual, this last processing, because I had started drinking again in my 30s. My 20s, I didn't drink, or do anything really, but my 30s, I was doing a lot of music and I was hanging out with a lot of people at bars and things like that. And so gradually I started, it started with some wine, and then it was like beer, and then it was liquor, and then it was like full on depression. but became just a normal part of my life. And it was something I remember even thinking, I don't know if I want to let go of this. Like if it was a choice, I didn't know if I wanted to. I actually enjoyed it, kind of like I enjoyed my cigarettes when I drank too. But there were times I felt the urge to just cleanse something, do something. So I would quit the most I did was 30 days at a time. Sometimes I would just change it up to I would let a week go and then I would drink. But of course I was noticing my pattern. When I would drink, I would get drunk. Like, I would definitely take it to the next level because I hadn't drank all week. So I wanted to get it all out, right? So I did all these things leading up. It was very gradual until I had that epiphany moment, and Spirit spoke to me. Like, I heard the audible voice, and something just shifted within me, and I knew. The knowingness is what changed everything. It changed the whole signature of my being. Like, the desire just wasn't there anymore. And it was very radical and very supernatural, super conscious. But so anyway, I want to talk a little bit about, so before leading into this, as a kid, I had my own struggles. My father's an addict. His father's an addict, an alcoholic. My mom's family, both mom and dad, are alcoholics. So in my lineage, in my blood, in my ancestry, it runs in my family on both sides. And for a lot of us, it's a pattern. And I think that that's something we need to acknowledge, because, not even in essence, the blood as much as the energy of your ancestry. Your ancestors are your ancestors, and they're part of you. So, sometimes we got to break the cycle that it never ceased through maybe their lives. And so, when you have all that, you're bound to have some sort of issue at some point or another, whether it be a different kind of addiction or whatnot. I think really we all in this linear world of 3D reality, I feel like we're all addicted to something in some way. If in that at some point there's an addiction until you can acknowledge and take control, learn how to switch things up in life, learn how to change routines and patterns, because that's the thing. In the 3D reality, that's the norm, is patternization. Everything's in boxes, everything's in squares, everything's like, this is how you do it, right? And so people, when you look at people, they just get stuck. They're stuck on their couch, they're stuck in their bottle, they're stuck in the same routine, the same things. Whether it's patterns of who they date, whether it's patterns of what they drink, what they eat, how they act, family, just habits of family, things like that, generations. It's a really slow evolution when you're not, shifting, more to a different dimensional reality. And I think inevitably a lot of us are, whether we realize it or not, but your pace is going to be a lot quicker when you can embrace the journey, the ride, and be open and willing enough to participate and not just sit back and, let life happen to you kind of thing. Is it challenging? Yeah. Does it hurt? Yeah. I mean, it's the process of life. It's an exchange. It's a give and take. That's life. I mean, you look at the animals in nature and figure that out. I think we all know that. But, so, I started out my early years, very rebellious teenager. I mean, I was like taking every drug that could come my way. I mean, my favorite was LSD. So, I mean, that's, hello. But it was drinking, smoking weed. I mean, I was like such a fucking weed. I thought, and man, I really basked in that. That was like, between the reggae music and the weed. I mean, I was, a traveler too. I was a hippie. I was a little hippie kid, man. I did my travels around. I went to different rainbow gatherings all over the country. I was hitchhiking at 16. It's crazy. But this is a lifestyle I was living. And, I went through phases with the alcohol because sometimes I would just hate it. And I think that's due in fact to my relatives and whatever nature I have. But I went up and down with that, but ended up at in my teens in like an outpatient rehab. I was put into that by my school, which was actually a really beautiful thing. Because it gave me my first foundation of spirituality, and I actually absorbed it like a sponge because I had nobody in my life to talk to about the things that were really coming up for me, and we didn't talk about feelings and emotions. Like that wasn't something I was used to. So, I went to my first AA meetings, NA meetings, because my dad was an addict. So I had these huge realizations at a very young age that I was lucky enough to have. I mean, at the time, you couldn't have told me, I was supposed to be mad I was in rehab, right? But I really, truly embraced it. I enjoyed it, and I soared. I was at the top of my class in writing, and I did all these presentations. It was kind of amazing once we stripped away the alcohol and the drugs. What it did to my being, my awareness. And I soaked up the AA rooms. I loved hearing people's stories. To me, that was just so amazing. And not that they went through all these amazing things, because they didn't, but that's what I related to because, I wasn't alone anymore. I was like, wow, there's actually people out here going through this shit. And there's people who believe in God like I do. I mean, I knew I believed in God. I just didn't know what or how. I kind of was a believer of everything, right? But it gave me this foundation because, of course, when I got out, I ended up, going back to smoking weed and just whatever. And then I ended up like in my 20s in some trouble again. I ended up going to jail because I was living with some people that were distributing. It was just bad. So I spent some time in jail for some stuff that I really didn't even have part of. I was just friends with the wrong people. That was a huge lesson in life as well. But I got out of that, and and that's when I went sober. I went sober for years in my 20s. And again, it was a time I just soared. I read so many books. I learned so many things. I was creating and growing huge fields of food, like organic food. I was taking care of animals on a farm. I mean, I was doing radical things in my 20s, early 20s. And then I ended up somehow being this person, married a complete alcoholic. And that's a long story that we won't get into. That's going to be saving that for its own podcast. But I didn't for years because he was a really abusive alcoholic and abusive in all sorts of ways. So I was just disgusted and didn't want anything to do with any of that. So I went the complete opposite direction and dove deep into spirituality, dove deep into like studying. I was studying the Bible back and forth from all different cultures. I was studying all different kinds of religions, just searching for, the truth, really. But also, I was really into health, nutrition, all that kinds of things. I was into martial arts. I was at my healthiest in my 20s, besides the fact that I was married to a completely insane individual that was very, very oppressive. But so that was a whole nother book of my life there. But coming out of that in my 30s, I felt like, when I made it out of that marriage, which was a miracle. Seriously, it was my second chance at life. That's how I saw it. But I headed out to California. I started doing music out there. And it was just, I'd be at the bars with people and I'm like, I don't drink, because we're there doing music. And eventually it was like, come on, like have a beer. And then it was just kind of like, it just happened. It was one beer here or one glass of wine here. And then it was, and then it slowly just trickled back in. And then the weed out there at the time, it was like all like, that's when they had the dispensaries. I had a card. I don't even know. I remember at times being like, why do I even have this card? This is ridiculous. It's almost like I just felt like I had to have it. But then I started end up having, I'd be buying stuff for friends. Then I started like cooking it again. Like I just dove right into, I don't know, dove right into to getting fucked up again. And my depression from that's when all the trauma just, or if you want to call it trauma, but all the processing that I didn't do from the marriage and all that destruction that happened in my energy body, I had no awareness of it and no idea what to even do. This was just part of my life, my process. I had to go through all this. So I'd never take anything back in my life ever, because it's all a part of my process and it's beautiful, even if it felt awful at the time, and a lot of times it did. But I don't know where I was, but in California, and I dove right back down. I was super depressed. I once found somebody, it was like I kept finding the wrong men, like not the wrong men, because that's a terrible way to say it, but men were entering my life again that were just like my ex. Crazy enough, they were beautiful, artistic people who presented themselves amazing, but the moment I got to know them, it was just a nightmare all over again. So, and I've talked a little bit about this, but it was just, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why the fuck this was happening. I'm a very smart person and I'm always aware for at least the knowledge I have at the time, but not quite as aware as I thought I was, you could say. But a lot of things happened there. And, I won't get into all that, but coming back to Charleston, eventually I made my way back this way, and I had done a lot of like growing. But the one thing I hadn't done was quit drinking. And I had expressed, I had this radical, I had a Kundalini movement that was back when I got here. And, so the gates were wide open, and I was like, it was beautiful. Where it was a beautiful experience, it also kicked off this dark night of the soul. That's the way we call it, right? But it kicked off this incredible shadow movement, right? Where I had to see some things in my life, because it was almost like a force, and I believe our souls do. When it's time, it's time. It's time for you to look at this shit. And there's people who will argue, oh, maybe you just weren't ready for that, and I'm not a believer in that for anybody. Whether it's a physical things you're dealing with, whether it's job loss thing, whatever, family, this, that, blah, 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 whatever upheaval there is, it is for a purpose. It is for a reason, and it's going to be just fine is the thing. In the moment, it might not feel like it, but needless to say, this kicked off huge shadow work movement, and I couldn't have identified it at that time, but that's exactly what it led me to, because where this beautiful, this amazing, very, highly supernatural thing happened. And then I was traveling in my dreams, and I was processing and doing all this inner therapy in ways that I never knew I could ever do. It was just extraordinary the way the timelines were lining up, how my mind cleared, my brain cleared, and I could go in, and it was like I was internally doing this work that I never thought I could possibly do. Memories were restored so that I could do the work, things of that nature, but I was doing it on my own. I didn't need anybody else. I didn't need a therapist. I didn't need the things that typically I would go to. And I had, in fact. But anyway, I was doing all this incredible work, but as I'm doing this work, just things kept happening. And I'm like, it was throwing me off. And another thing, the biggest part was I hadn't quit drinking yet. I had questioned it. I remember being like, maybe I shouldn't do this. But I continued. And so I made this move to move downtown, and I know it was a spirit-led move. I moved in these beautiful women who were both just beautiful energies, beautiful space. I was stoked, and I was like, yes. And I was like, I'm going to get around people. And that was something I really needed, that spirit was calling me to do, because I was very isolated at the time. And so yeah, I got out, I got around people. I started going out downtown. I was still going to yoga, and I was going to these meditation things. I was doing all kinds of things, but I was in the bars, and I don't know, man. It was one thing after the other. I went down a hole that was worse than I had ever gone. And this was in my 30s. So I would say I was like 36 then. Yeah, about 36. So this is later in my life. I'm partying downtown. I'm partying with people that I remember in my mind being like, this is crazy. And so I'm like, none of these people know who I really am. None of these people I can even relate to. I can't tell them about these experiences I'm having. They think I'm fucking crazy. Or I could talk about it and they'll just be like, yeah, and forget about it the next day. It's not going to matter. Talk about seeing everything clear as day, because I was wide open. To the point where I could actually see when there was entities around in spaces. It was an intense experience. And I ended up starting to do a lot of things. I was taking Adderall, because that's a thing, guys. Out and about. When you're in that party scene, Adderall's a big thing. Cocaine's a big thing, and things that I actually hate. I always detested it. It's funny how I came back around to that, and I was wilding out. I'm getting getting as fucked up as I could possibly get. But it got to the point where I was getting so fucked up that people would tell me I was doing things that I was like, I swore I didn't do. And this was not me. This was not me. And I knew it. I even like took myself to the hospital one time because somebody had told me I had been doing something one night at a bar that I was like, I swore there's no fucking possible way I must have been, because I blacked out, didn't remember. And I took myself to the hospital. I was like, I think I've been drugged. I don't know. And I still to this day, because they're like, oh, it took too long, so we can't tell if that, you took too long to get here, so we can't tell if that happened or not. Because it could have flushed out the system. But I mean, it was getting to the point. I mean, I had somebody show me a video of myself, like, doing karaoke, which is something I always love to do, but sometimes we're good and sometimes God only knows. But, this time he showed me a video, and this is where it started to get weird. And I was singing a song that I don't even know. I know of the song, but I don't know the song. I don't know the lyrics. I would have never picked this song. It was so bizarre and painful that I said, turn it off. Please delete that. I just cannot. I can't. That's just, it scared me. And it scared me in a way. Now, I mean, I knew that it wasn't me as a thing. And this is where I think the whole thing of spirits comes in. When, I've read things like, your soul will basically exit your body, and that's where spirits can come in and take over a human. Like, that's why a lot of times when you see people blacked out, they're not themselves. They say they act out in ways that are not, their nature. But I mean, hey, this could go a number of ways. I mean, it's I don't know for certain, but what I do know is I felt like I was being, in essence, there was like a takeover of my spirit body. Like my vessel was being used, I don't know, by another entity. It was not of a very low vibrational entity of some sort. And it can be through ancestry, I believe too, but I don't know. But this would explain a lot of reasons why you see blackness in people's eyes. The soul exits. It's like it's not even human. I mean, I remember my ex before he would do really awful things to me or towards me, I would always know when I looked in his eyes. I knew when it was going to be bad, and I knew when it might be, he's still halfway there, right? But there's something to be said for that. So we allow things, I feel like, when we lower our vibration like that, we allow, like, basically I call them, they're not bloodsuckers, they're life force suckers, and they live and thrive off of our life force energy. And that's how we get entity attachment, things like this. And this gets into like things I'll speak about on another podcast when I get into entity attachments, the lower vibrational energies that can attach to you when you choose to lower your vibration in such ways. And this goes for smoking too much weed. This goes for alcohol consumption. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen every time, but this is what can happen and does occur with people. And it's why some people, I just feel, have such a struggle to get out of it. Because for whatever reason, that attachment is so strong. So yeah, I was noticing things. So these kinds of things were happening. I was dating a guy at the time that it just clearly was not, we had no match at all as far as, anyway, I won't get into that much, but, the choices I were making were very destructive, and somewhere deep in my soul, I knew it clearly because I knew too much. Thank God I knew too much. My soul knew too much. So it's like, I feel like truly my soul allowed me to kind of get to the worst bottom there. And that was about 1.5 to 2 years, maybe 1.5 years. I mean, I was working like 3 jobs, doing the things I usually do, and then just like taking them back at night. Like, and I mean, like, I would do bingers. I mean, it was just the worst I had ever gotten. And I think that me having that Kundalini movement and having all that happen, because it amplified my shadow and the deep things that needed to come up, the upheaval that needed to come out, the things I needed to see. Because if things aren't brought into our awareness, we cannot transmute them. That's why we always want to become more aware of different aspects of ourselves, different aspects of our whole being. That means accepting those good and what we would consider bad things. You know, in essence, it's all there to help you, but you have to become aware of it first. You can't ignore it. You can't walk away from it. You can't close your eyes. It's not going away. And your soul will take you to that place that you need to go in order for you to open those damn fucking eyes. Excuse my language. Not really, but I love to cuss, y'all. That's one thing about me. I love to cuss. I just really do. And so it happens. I mean, I try to keep it clean if I need to, but I think we're big people here, and this is my podcast, so I'm going to cuss. Anyway, point is, your soul will take you to that place you need to get to. And I mean, I'm talking, I would come home, I was covered in bruises. I would fall, I would run into things. I was a loudmouth clown, man. I mean, I was a partier drunk. I'm like a biker drunk, you know. I like to rage and get crazy and laugh, and you know. But some of the things coming through were not. It was bad, and it was killing me. And when I see people, it breaks my heart, because I know when I see people in this place in their lives where they just can't stop, they just won't stop. It is truly, you what you're doing in essence to yourself is a really slow suicide. And oh my God, I gotta check the time. Okay, we're good. Slow suicide, and you know, we're all capable of it if we allow ourselves to go that far. But there's a lot of people walking around like that, you know. I have family members still walk around like that, and it is so hard to see. But you know, we learn how to process these things the more aware we become. And so, with that being said, me going to my this absolute rock bottom, I knew slowly I started to gain. My soul just started getting stronger and getting stronger as I listened. And when I say listened, it started with like things like, I can't eat this food anymore. I would look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I look like death. I mean, here I am 36. I remember everybody around me be like, you're fine. You're so beautiful. Oh my God, you look beautiful. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I'm not. I was like, no, I know what I can look like, because when you've been healthy and you've been fit and you know your glow, it's like, no, no, bitch, I look like shit. Let's be honest. And that's another thing you'll notice. So people in the bar, if you're in the bar scene, if you are just getting fucked up all the time, you lie to yourself, man. These people lie to each other, lie to themselves, like, oh yeah, you're so hot. It's like, no, you look pale and you look like you're like a, you know, starving like child. Like, I don't know. It just, the lies run deep in that scene, but, and in that reality. But, anyway, I just, my soul started speaking to me in that way, where I just knew, because I was in the health industry. So it's not, that's of course the first place my soul would go. I was like, I'm not well, and I'm getting too old for this. You know, it just wasn't happening for my body anymore. So I started, you know, doing a cleanse here and there, like starting to change my diet, like saying no to certain things, like really trying to get my diet more back in order. And as I gradually did this, I knew the next step was, I got to get out of downtown. I was like clawing my way out of downtown, because I knew I couldn't say no downtown. I kept going out. I kept like doing the same routine, hanging out with the same people, because of course they're blowing my phone up, and and then I'm bored because this is all I've been doing, and like, I don't know, it's just that endless cycle. So I got out of downtown, and then that was when I started slowly going back to yoga class here or there. I would go to the gym. Actually, okay, yeah, I don't even think I got to yoga first. This started because it started in the gym. The gym had a sauna. And so I would get on like the elliptical machine, which I could barely do for any real amount of time. I was still drinking here and there too now, but definitely not as much, not as heavy, and I was going to bed earlier. It just was very gradual. This is why I say give yourself space to just listen and really flow with it, and just listen to your spirit. And you're that's a big step. There's a lot of big steps you take in the little steps. You need those little steps to get to the big steps. But you just got to listen to yourself, and I think that's the most valid point I'm trying to make right now. But I would go sit in that sauna, and that's what I was guided to do. And it was like I was just allowing myself to do that. Okay, if I could just get there, and I would sit there for I think 15 to 20 minutes. I would stretch in there, and I would stay in there solid for 20 minutes. So yeah, it's about 20 minutes, and just sweat my ass off. And I slowly started getting the movement more, like I could feel my body. I was getting into my body. Looking back, I didn't really even realize what I was doing as much as I do now. My soul wanted to come back in the vessel, in the body. My body had to get ready though. My body needed to be full and like present and available. And so I was drinking lots more water and like doing all the things I already knew to do. I mean, look, I've been in the wellness industry since I was in my early 20s, and before that I was I had done all the studies on my own, so I was very conscious, thank God, in that regard. But your intuition will tell you a lot, whether you know or not. You just listen to what is feeling good for your body. Like anyway, drinking tons of water, going to the sauna. This happened for weeks. And then I was just kicking my drinking back, right? So like I was just cutting back, cutting down, not really going out. I had a new house too, so I had my own space away. I didn't have to go downtown, didn't want to go downtown, didn't want to do any of it. Started, excuse me, I gotta sneeze. Very gradual. I think I went and visited, and that's when I visited my friend out in San Diego. I told her when I come, I don't want to drink. I want to do healthy things. I want to do something different. She found that's when I did that breath work in sound class. And that was the first time I laid my eyes on gongs, that my body received the gong, that it was the first time I dived back into breath work after years of being terrified of it from previous experience in my 20s. And that session, about a 2-hour session, literally popped some things off in my energetic being, in my body, in my soul, and my spirit began to speak to me again through that session. This is why that's actually what put me into sound and everything. And so sound and frequency has been a huge part of my healing, and rapid healing. And that I am assured of. I just know it in my soul. And that's why, literally like through my progress, I ended up going a few months later back to go train in sound healing. And that that's a big part of my story. So the quitting drinking altogether came after my training, and I came back here. I had already cut way back, and I had even done like a 30-day month. So like the only reason I broke the 30-day, I remember there was a hurricane, and we went to hang out with my brother, his friends. We were all stuck in this house together, and everybody was drinking. That's what we do in the South in a hurricane party. And I just said, fuck it, I'm going to drink. And I knew I made a conscious choice. I knew what I was doing. I was like, but I'll get back off of this tomorrow. Well, that whole night was it showed me myself, because not only did I drink, I mean, I drank like a fish, and I felt my personality change. I felt me change, as far as all of a sudden I wanted more. I wanted some pills. I wanted something. I needed something more. And that recognition terrified me. I was like, this is disgusting. Who am I? I was like, this is what I was doing. It was this huge acknowledgement that I hadn't had. It was in one of those moments where you just, an epiphany moment. I realized this is really ugly. I don't like it. And it was the very next morning when I woke up with an awful hangover, and yeah, I mean, that was it. I woke up and the voice spoke to me, and that was it. And I mean it, like, not a desire, like, this happens, this is real. This is real. From a girl that said, I mean, I honestly was like, I don't know that I really want to quit. I mean, I just want to, like, be able to do it when I want to do it, you know? But for my soul's journey here, my soul said no, you know? And how, now, does that mean that, like, I don't walk around? What also I believe is part of this experience for me is I don't call myself an alcoholic. That's huge for me. And I know that, like, I know in AA, and I work with a lot of people in AA, and I'm all about AA because it is a huge stepping stone for a lot of people. Now, in my personal viewpoint, I think there is a place you can attain through the process, through the journey, where, you know, and I think altogether, I have to say, calling yourself an alcoholic over and over, repeatedly for so long is a terrible thing you can do for your own soul, your own existence, your own body, your own spirit. Because I'm a huge believer in vibration and frequency, and words carry energy and frequency. And so you will never find me saying that, and I would never it just won't happen, because I'm not a believer in that. And I do believe that when you say, I'll never do this again, I'll never do that again, you are in fact enforcing a resistance. And in fact, eventually over somewhere you will, who knows, you know, I think it's really important that we acknowledge these things in life. And for me, I think that's a huge part of my process. Now, it just kind of came naturally. I just knew, I felt in my soul, this just doesn't resonate, you know? Now, I'm not out here to tell anybody what they need to do. Certainly when it comes to addictions, but I do know what's worked for me, and I know what's happened in my experience, and so I think it's important I share it to everybody, for all reasons, but for all reasons across the board. So, but I work a lot with people in recovery or on the path of sobriety. It just happens innately. It's not something I go and try. I have offered my services to some rehabs, things like that. But it's something that just happens because it's what lines up. It's what our souls line up for, right? That's why people come to me, you know, whether they know my story or they don't. I am on the sober path, and I absolutely love it, and I absolutely believe in it. And I believe in the journey of sound and frequency, and this is what's taught me a lot. I know it was a huge part of my recovery and my healing, and it's still to this day. This is what the energies I work with. And so with that said, even things like smoking too much weed, like if people really want, I always tell people, you know, if you really want change in your life, you have to be willing to, like, become aware. And you cannot become aware if you're constantly blocking your emotional body. You're constantly blocking getting to the root, and you cannot get to the root. You get to the root in purity. We can't, when you're just high all the time, sorry, but you're not going to be like that in touch as you think you are. I mean, it's funny and ironic that people get high all the time and think, oh, it's this earth and I'm, this is medicinal and yeah, blah, blah, blah. There's I've heard every excuse under the sun from people. But reality is reality. I mean, this is the truth. I mean, hey, you can't really go against the science of the universal laws of vibration. And so you can try, but you probably won't get that far. And this is just if you want to, if you're wanting to expand, right? And you're wanting to dive into the shadow, because when you dive into the shadow, that's where you expand. You cannot dive into the shadow if you're completely covering up these aspects of yourself. You're refusing subconsciously to look at them if that is your reality, in fact. And it can be a hard reality to face. And some people will hear this and be like, oh, bullshit. Whatever. I don't care. This is my experience. This is why I share it. And I know for a fact that it's helped many people, because sometimes it just takes hearing the confirmation from somebody else that this was real in their lives, that this is a reality, that this is the facts. Sometimes it's just hearing that. So if I'm making this just for one person to hear it and go, I'm going to try it. I knew it in my soul all along. I'm definitely going to try it. I'm going to stop for a while or forever or whatever. I don't, like I said, you don't need to say forever. It's just not what you're going to do today. That's it. For now. That's what I feel like. And you get to a point you feel so good, and then you realize you don't need these things, and you can actually go way, 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 way higher and way more out there in your sober mind through your pineal gland, your God-given senses, antennas. We have all these senses to plug into, but when we're distorting the senses constantly with pharmaceutical drugs, with alcohol, with weed, with whatever. Now weed is like fucking next level, man. It's not even like weed anymore. I mean, even the medicinal, like plant medicines, people abuse those. People really abuse those because they're finding that to be their spiritual experience. But they're not going within. And that's where we want to go, is within always. Everything starts within. Everything. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and end this right around here. But today I have 3 years solid that I've just been sober, and no alcohol. I mean, I have had, I will say I've done some, what do you call it? Mushroom, microdoses. I've used those, and I actually did ayahuasca for the first time in 2020 when I was going into the pit of some things. And, but everything I use, like I said, it is intentionally medicinal, and, really doesn't take much. And if I'm called to it, it's because I'm called to it. And a lot of the experience is always to learn. And I also learn more about vibration and frequency, and how those medicines actually have more to do with the frequency and the vibration than they do anything else. So there's a lot to talk about there too. And I will probably have somebody on the podcast so we can dive a little deeper into plant medicine and how all that works, and how to work with it and how not to work with it. But other than that, completely sober and loving my life. Excited. I feel good. If I wake up and I don't feel good, I know why. I have that awareness to know why. So it's a beautiful thing. You want to become aware, y'all. Aware of yourself. It's exciting. It's fun. It makes you love life. I mean, your vibration will shift completely. Your confidence shifts completely when you're willing and ready to go in. And really, when you get sober, that's things you're going in. You're going in, no doubt. You're going to be feeling again all the things. So anybody that's been there and done that, and you're on that path, Oh my God. Kudos. Congratulations. I am so proud of you. And I thank you because you make the world a better place. Truly. Truly. So that's it. I'm going to go work out right now. So as within, so without, as above, so below, love is truly all that is. So be it. Wholeness, family. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to the Awaken Spanda podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please stay tuned because we are going to have much more in store, many subjects, and lots of cool guests that I got on the books. So good things to come. I really do want to encourage you guys after today's episode, being sober-minded has truly changed my life and allowed me to make more of the unconscious conscious, truly, to embrace more aspects of self. And I really do believe this is the way you will get there. So if you were triggered or had any kinds of things come up during this episode, and you need somebody to talk to, please reach out. I do have an email, awakenspanda@gmail.com. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to ask or share. Okay? I love you guys so much. We have a full moon sound ceremony also, if you were in the Charleston area, on 9/20 at Satsang Yoga. So check that out. Visit my site, www.awakenspanda.com. I love you guys so much. Till next time, wholeness.